What's up, y'all? Tight Shirt Terry Warfield back for another video. Hey, I hope you're having a great day so far. Remember to be thankful for your life today because you did not have to have that. As you saw in the intro, today we are talking about the Canon EOS R5C. Big shout out to BH Photo for hooking this up for me. They hit me up like, hey Terry, we got an R5C in stock. Would you like to test it out? And I'm like, man, what? Do bears poop in the woods? Of course I want to test it out. Send it over. So I've had it for about a month and a half. Unfortunately, I haven't had a whole lot of time to test it just because I had so much stuff going on in my personal life. But I do have some opinions. So with that being said, big shout out to BH for sending that over. If y'all need to do any shopping, lenses, microphones, cameras, make sure you hit the links in the description to purchase from BH Photo. Now, the next thing is I do not script videos, so if I mess up, I just mess up. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong about something in the comments. Just be respectful or I'll have to hit you with one of them. And the third thing is I guess we might as well get into it. So, the EOS R5C. I made a reaction video when this thing got announced and said that this might be the camera that might steal me away from Sony. And Sony fanboys rejoice. It is not. Canon fanboys rejoice because there is no camera out there like this under $5,000. This thing is literally game changing. It's essentially a C70 and an R5C. They was like, hey, you want to date? R5C was like, yep, let's have a baby. And then this is what happened. So you're getting a full-fledged cinema camera minus all of the cinema controls on the outside and also a super high quality EOS R5 all stuffed into one small mirrorless style body. How epic is that? When I say this bad boy is powerful, I mean pretty much every container, codec, 8K RAW. Internally, it could do anamorphic D-squeeze. It's got all of your monitoring options built into it. True DCI, 4K, autofocus and all that stuff, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Internal fan, and it's just so much camera for $5,000. If I went over everything, it'd take me freaking 3 days to talk about everything in the R5C. So instead of doing that, I'm going to tell you 5 things about this that honestly are kind of deal breakers, especially for a solo content creator like myself. Now, I'm not saying that this applies to everybody. There are people who are not solo content creators that will be buying this to use on a film set, that will be primarily using this in studio. In those regards, this is almost a perfect camera, but it's not perfect. So let's talk about them 5 things because I think they are important. Number 1, the biggest Achilles heel for me when it comes to the R5C is freaking battery life. Listen, I understand, and we got to be fair, that this is 2 cameras built in one. It is super powerful. It is so much packed into one camera body, powered by this teensy-weensy little battery. That battery right there. All right, so now that I got the way, listen, it's a real thing, okay? The battery life in photos is fine. In video mode, the battery life on here is just not good. I'm being honest. There's a few things you could do in the menu to, you know, lengthen the battery and it gives you a few extra minutes, but in video mode, you can literally just see the battery trickling away, even while cycling through the menu. So like, I guess my problem with it is I love how you get so much camera in a mirrorless style format. If I wanted a bigger camera, I would have bought a C70 or FX6. I don't want a bigger camera. I want this body right here. So the problem is, if I want to extend the battery life, that means I got to go buy a bunch of extra batteries. And y'all know how Canon cameras are real funny with third-party batteries. So you got to buy official, or you got to get some type of battery plate or battery system, which, yeah, adds size to an already pretty beefy camera, which I'm going to talk about that in a second also. But in my opinion, it's just an Achilles heel for a solo content creator like myself, because for me to get respectable video recording time, I have to rig it out, which I don't want to do, or I got to buy a bunch of extra batteries. Now, again, this won't be important for everybody. Some of you will have this camera in a studio where it's always connected to power, or you'll be on a film set where it's always connected to power. But for solo content creators, the battery life, especially when filming, is just not good. The second thing that is a deal breaker, 2022 Canon, y'all created literally the Thanos of cameras. Why do we have micro HDMI? Please explain that to me. Like, I love y'all, but who thought this was a good idea? I can assure you none of us want this, okay? Maybe it was a size or space constraint, whatever the case may be, unacceptable in 2022 for $5,000 camera to have micro HDMI. I'm sorry. Number 3 is the lack of physical stabilization. Now, Canon says that they did not include it because this is a cinema camera first. Fair. cinema cameras, especially Canon ones, don't have stabilization. Most people in a cinema setting do not care about stabilization, but this is a small hybrid Canon camera. Like Canon, y'all know that a lot of people buying this are not going to be professional filmmakers on film sets. So stabilization is a big deal. It does have electronic stabilization, fair. And a lot of Canon's lenses do have built-in stabilization. But what if I want to go get that 50mm f1.2 that Canon sent over for me to test out? I guess I'm just SOL. So stabilization is a big deal. The next thing is the time that it takes to switch from photo to video mode. Now we got to be fair. Again, this thing has to load an entire cinema operating system. And y'all know what comes with that. Waveforms, scopes, shutter angle, like all of those cinema things that we love. Yeah, it has to load that whole operating system. But as a solo content creator, and again, I get that on a film set, this is not a big deal. In a controlled studio scenario, not a big deal. But for somebody who is a run and gun photographer or filmmaker, having to switch back and forth and the camera taking 7 seconds to switch over, maybe 6 if you turn off the shutter cleaning stuff, 6 seconds in the field is a big deal. The last thing is autofocus. And again, I understand that some people will not be using autofocus with this camera, but a lot of people, being honest, probably about 80% of people who buy this camera will be using it for autofocus. Now for photography, it's just fine. It works like any other Canon cameras, fantastic. It's sticky, it tracks, it does all that stuff. But in video, where I depend on autofocus as a solo content creator, I find it very, very lacking compared to today's competition. And again, I know the film snobs will say, oh, we don't care about autofocus, but I do. So now that we got those things out the way, again, there's so much to love about the R5C. It is pretty expensive. It's right under $5,000, but let's talk about the exterior first. I love how this camera looks. I love how it feels. The ergonomics are freaking amazing. There's freaking buttons and switches everywhere, and I love how thick it is. It's just the whole hand fits on there. And even on this side over here, it's real thick, and I like them thick. Don't get me wrong. But I thought that this was going to be a problem over here with the fan side, but truly it's actually like an extra handle over here, which really lends itself well when you don't have stabilization because it helps smooth out a lot of those little micro jitters. But yeah, ergonomics wise, this thing is literally fantastic. The buttons, the switches, everything is high quality. There's literally customization options, like so many. And that was one of my biggest complaints with the R6. It wasn't enough customizability. On this one, there's literally buttons to start your car, let the garage down, and film and take a picture at the same time. Ergonomically, this is my favorite camera that I've ever used. The EVF is great. The viewfinder is great. The way it feels in hand is great. It's got weather sealing and all that stuff. I really love the way this camera looks and feels. 10 out of 10 on this one, Canon. The second thing I really love about this camera is, I know I touched on it earlier, but just how powerful it is. If you go on Canon's website, which I'm not about to go through every single spec listed in here, there's no other camera in this price point that offers this many codecs, right? That offers autofocus, that offers stills at the same time, that offers this many resolutions and this many container options with the ability to shoot raw, light and all that stuff, and still gives you all of the monitoring tools you need, all of the anamorphic options built in. Not all of the anamorphic options, but enough of them. Like all of that stuff is built into the camera, and that is game changing. That is what makes this camera so appealing. The image quality obviously is fantastic. I haven't used it in a sports scenario yet, but I know it's got crazy good tracking in here. The video codecs, even though it doesn't have C-Log 2, it does have C-Log 3. And honestly, like, I'm not about to sit here and split hairs over it. The footage that comes out of this thing is beautiful. And what's so dope about this is it can be rigged up for any film set. It's got enough internal options in here and ports and stuff on here where you can link it up to time code if you need to and all that good stuff. Like, that is really good about it. So if all that being said, Terry, you got all this good stuff to say about it, minus those 5 things, are you switching? And unfortunately, my answer to that is no. And the reason that is no is because even though this thing is probably the most powerful camera you can get under $5,000, for a solo content creator, those 5 things that I went over are, up to this point, and I haven't tested everything yet, so I don't have a final decision, but at this point, those are kind of deal breakers when I have other cameras like the FX3 that I'm using right now that may not have everything that this have, but they have what's important for us solo content creators. They have stabilization, they have fantastic image quality, they're very, very small, great battery life, great autofocus, and etc. And I get not everybody needs this. Some people do need this, so this is the perfect camera for a lot of people. But for me as a solo content creator, I'm not 100% sure if this is the camera for me. As much as I love it, I want to like fall all the way in love with this, but it's those 5 things holding me back. Before I wrap this video up, I got to give a big shout out to Downix for sending over this dope gaming chair. Like, look how good this quality is. It looks sweet. It's got like a built-in back massager in it and all that stuff. I'll leave an affiliate link down in the description if y'all want to cop one. Super dope chair. Thanks Downix for sending it over. But I'm very curious to know what y'all think about the EOS R5C. Obviously there's a lot of stuff I did not talk about. We will be here for 3 hours if I wanted to talk about everything, but I'm very curious to know what y'all think about what I said and what you think about the EOS R5C. Leave it down in the comments. I hope this video was some type of insightful, helpful, whatever the case may be, entertaining, maybe you think I'm an idiot, whatever the case may be. I hope it was that for you. Till next time, I'm getting out of here. Tight shirt, Terry Warfield. Peace. Have a great day, y'all.